Welcome to the Zeducation podcast, where it's all about helping people and organizations unleash their greatness. Hosted by me, Pasitawa Haufano, and my brother, that's me, Kalolo Haufano. The Zeducation podcast features lively discussions.
When they share it, you see that they're beginning to feel empowered.
My heart, it's full of pride for me to be at Maitai Samoa.
As well as tips on leadership and business by some of the top minds and influencers around the world.
You don't necessarily need a degree these days. There's so many pathways to success.
Welcome to the Zeducation podcast. So, welcome to the Zeducation podcast. On this episode, I'm interviewing Sarah Mouscardes, a senior global programs leader at Cisco, with a remarkable career that spans across various roles, including enablement and talent development. Based here in Auckland, New Zealand, Sarah is renowned for her expertise in driving large-scale workforce transformation initiatives with a focus on leader talent development. With a strong track record, she has led award-winning programs and excelled in stakeholder management, change management, and program communication. In this episode, we will delve into the intricacies of creating a learning culture on a global scale, exploring strategies for success and how to foster continuous learning within an organization. So join us as we learn from her experience and insights on building a learning culture, strategies for success. So thank you for joining us, Sarah.
Thank you, Pasi. Lovely intro. Thank you, and thanks for having me today.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. And welcome to the heart of Auckland, Pukikohi, as they say. I think just a bit of an icebreaker question, just to kind of kick things off here. Maybe share something interesting about yourself that people don't normally know about you.
Okay. Most of the people around me know that I've got a massive passion for the French culture and France and the French language. And I was lucky enough when I was 17 to go on a student exchange to Bordeaux. And so I spent 6 months going to school and living with a French family. And that, I guess, was quite a defining moment in my life. And it taught me a lot about resilience and being accepting of others and being out of your comfort zone, but also it gave me this passion for learning and for being curious. So yeah, great times. And also it led to me meeting my husband later in life as well. He's French, and we lived in Paris for a long time together and had our children there. So
there you go, the benefits and perks of traveling around the world.
Absolutely.
You learn a lot, it opens your eyes, you expose yourself to different cultures, and potentially you might find the one. There you go.
That's it, absolutely. You never know.
I love it. Well, thank you for sharing that. Just kind of, for those audience who don't know what Cisco is or what they do, the company, where you work, maybe give us a little insight into Cisco and also your role there as Senior Global Programs Leader.
So Cisco is an American company based in Silicon Valley in San Jose. We're an IT leader. We focus on collaboration, products, networking, security. So all the routers and the servers that you find in a company office will be very often Cisco products. You might have your IP phones and things like that are often Cisco too. And we are moving from primarily product sales into more of a software focus now as well. So Cisco has 83,000 employees globally. And so a lot of people like me are working in global roles. We all oftentimes work remotely from our homes. So the whole COVID thing didn't have a massive impact on a lot of our employees because of the fact a lot of us were already working remotely. And then my role specifically, I work in a global team. Most of my team are based in the US, and so my hours are a little bit crazy. I start really early. I'm on 6 a.m. I'm on meetings, back-to-back meetings for around 4 or 5 hours. So my focus is I'm in the learning and development team. And our team looks after 27,000 employees of that 80. So it's around a third of the workforce. We are on point to build training and development for that group of employees. And so as you can imagine, there's a lot of complexity that goes into that because you've got programs that scale all of them, and then there's ones that are very specific to a job role, and so it's finding that kind of happy medium between what we prioritize as well in terms of work, and as a program leader, oftentimes my leadership might come to me with a business challenge, and I'll go and kind of do some research and discovery to work out, where the business needs help from a learning standpoint, and then I'll kind of rally a team to support me and roll out specific programs once we've kind of got the buy-in from the right people in the business. Yeah.
I like it. Thank you for sharing that. So a tech company, Cisco, and you talked about, a lot of your things online anyway, so COVID didn't really impact you too much. And obviously that goes to show as well the benefits of, if you've got a business that uses tech or, maybe pivoting and adopting some tech tools can really help your business be a little bit more flexible and deal with some of the challenges in the market. And your role there, you're learning and development, but at a global level, 27,000 staff. Under your belt with your team at a global level and the crazy hours, I assume, different time zones and managing the team. How much of your team is here in New Zealand versus outside of New Zealand?
Oh, in that 27,000? So that's, not very many. There's probably a couple of hundred or something like that in New Zealand. So it's very much the main kind of pockets are, it's global fully. So, if we've got a lot of employees in the States, obviously, because it's an American company, but then very much in Europe and the Asian region as well. Huge offices in India. It's a lot of massively spanning the globe.
Yeah. I guess what are some of the differences? Obviously, at a global level, you're working with different time zones and people from different countries. There's different cultures you have to take into consideration in terms of training and development. Yeah. What else is different, at a global level, that level versus just a local business? Yeah,
I think we are really focused on a digital first strategy within our training, our enablement, we call it, or training and development, which basically means that everything is digital. It's online, it's on demand. We make sure that it's scalable and accessible by everybody. And so I think we've moved from instructor-led cohorts and web kind of like virtual sessions to on-demand, and to make sure that everybody can access content when they need it. Yeah.
So you leverage technology a lot. Obviously that makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah, awesome. So can you maybe give us some insights in terms of some of the training initiatives that you've got going on at Cisco under your 27,000?
Yes. So I think we've got programs that scale everybody. So one of the ones I'm leading on specifically is around training requirements. And this program kicked off about a year ago, and we had a business challenge where our employees were getting swamped by training, basically from all the different parts of the business, whether it be compliance or HR or other legal, or there might be something specific for their job role. And so we work to consolidate all the different asks into one specific program. And so now employees get one email every quarter at the beginning of the quarter to say, these are your training requirements for the quarter. And it sounds kind of simple, but actually it was really complex to pull together because you're aligning with so many stakeholders and getting a lot of approvals before you can actually tell somebody what they need to do. So in a big corporate like Cisco, there's quite the hierarchy to navigate. And finally the programs run the business, and the people are actually coming to us now to say, I need to get my training into your program, because that way I know that people will complete it, and they'll be, more upskilled to understand, the whatever message they need to get out.
Yeah, the experience needs to be really simple and enjoyable for the employees, right? There's a lot of things we've got to upskill them on, but we've got to do it smart, in a way that doesn't overwhelm them as well. So maybe in terms of the training, obviously, in my assumption, especially for a tech company, a lot of the focus maybe is hard skills, which is important, or the priority. Using the tech tools, how to use software, and that's a given,
yes,
right? Where's the balance in terms of how does it work with you guys in terms of hard skills and soft skills, and what are you seeing? What are the big trends at the moment?
There's always the balance. We have to have the balance between the technical skills and then the soft, or we call them professional skills, because a lot of the job roles, because we're so specifically focused on enabling job roles. For example, a business development manager, they are customer facing, and they need to understand technology and our portfolio, but they also need to be able to position it with customers, and they need to be able to talk to customers and influence and be able to explain themselves, to have really strong communication skills. So a lot of the piece around communication and empathy and active listening and those things we try to build into all of our content. Yeah, so loads of soft skills. There's ones at the moment we're focusing on which are enterprise wide, so as in for our 27,000 group, around change and managing change. So we've got building change resilience for our employees. That's coming out soon. And then we're also focusing on leading through change for our leaders and helping them to navigate change with their teams and help them to break down barriers in terms of change resistance. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's such an important topic, especially with the world that we live in. Change is happening so much, especially in the tech industry. I mean, you got things like AI, and that's how changing a lot of jobs.
Yes.
And a lot of lives at the moment.
Yes.
So I can definitely understand where you're coming from in terms of that. So tell us a little bit more about the change resilience, because I feel like that's something that's very interesting to me, the change resilience.
Mm-hmm.
It makes sense that's a focus because of everything that's happening.
Yeah.
So how do you help? What are the skills that you're teaching them within that? Because change resilience is still an umbrella.
Yeah.
How are you helping them build that?
Well, I think so. In terms of the context, we've got huge transformation initiatives going on at Cisco. Our company is moving to a new kind of recurring revenue model, and we need to get everybody on board. And so we've got transformation messaging coming out soon around what is the transformation, so everybody can articulate it. But before we do that, we're actually giving them some change training around. So in terms of building change resilience, it's oftentimes about making sure that employees understand the big picture. So asking questions and making sure that, they're asking questions to their leaders, and if their leaders can't help them, then those leaders need to be going and finding out the answers to make sure their teams are coming along on with the change and actually supporting it, because as soon as there's maybe negativity, it can be quite infectious as well. So you want to get ahead of that and break down that resistance. And we're giving them techniques or even around mindfulness and just being practicing even meditation and things like that to calm themselves and help themselves to see the bigger picture. And it's not just all about me and my role. It's, well, there must be a really good reason. If we're changing, there must be a really good reason. So what is the change, and help, make sure that our employees are really understanding it. And to our leaders, it's like, well, make sure that they're really explaining the vision and helping employees to understand why things are changing, because it's constant. It's every week. At Cisco, there's an organizational restructure or there's a new tool, and especially with the IT stuff or the portfolio's always evolving. Yeah, and so it's constant.
Well, it sounds like a big change is coming, and you guys are preparing for it, or preparing your staff for it. And I'm sure with any change, any form of change, yes, it's a global thing, which is a massive project when you're dealing with change, but it's also it's an individual experience, eh? And yes. I'm reminded of the ADCAR model.
Yes.
As well, and you talked about the awareness and being clear around the change, why it's happening, how it's happening, that kind of thing, and then building up the capability of your people to manage that and to deal with it. And well-being, or what do you call it? Mindfulness.
Yes, yeah.
Is one of those things, right? Because mentally, people have to deal with that too. Well, that's great. And I'm sure you've got a lot of training initiatives going on. I'm sure that's just one of many. And we could sit here all day and talk about all of them. But let's talk about the one that actually won you guys the Gold Award for Best Talent Development Innovation, which is a remarkable achievement. And I saw that on your LinkedIn profile. Wow, that is so awesome. Tell us a little bit more about that. How did you win? What was it that was innovative in terms of what you did that got this award?
Well, firstly, there was a huge team involved. So it definitely wasn't just me, but I was lucky enough to work with an amazing team of instructional designers and learning architects and project managers. And basically, so we submitted a couple of awards, and we actually won 2 awards over a space of a couple of years.
Wow.
But they were different companies. So we had the Brandon Hall Award and then another one from the Association of Talent Development. And we talked about, so first of all, around 6 years ago, the customer experience organisation was created at Cisco, and we had leaders coming over from Salesforce, and they built out basically a whole new organisation with brand new job roles in the customer, so a customer success team. And there was also some new strategy involved around ways of working, and they developed a new customer lifecycle model. And within the model, there were different job responsibilities, and everybody had to understand what their role was in the pre-sale and post-sale efforts. And so our job was to basically get everybody trained up and make sure that they were ready to perform and be successful in their brand new job roles. And so a lot of work was done around defining the blueprints of the role or the job descriptions. So there were teams that were outside of the enablement team, but that built these job descriptions. And then once they were built, we could use those as our anchor to really build out role-specific learning pathways with exams, and we created a belting strategy around it, so you could earn your green belt to begin with, and there was a badge associated to that. So we worked with a company called Credly, and we had those badges, so like they're certified kind of badges that you can put onto your LinkedIn profile and things like that. So that was the program that we built out for 13 job roles. And it drove revenue at the end of the day. Like the numbers in terms of the customer experience were really successful, and subscriptions were being renewed and that kind of thing. So the whole experience was really challenging because we were building a program from scratch with new teams and everybody within our own internal team, but then we were supporting this whole new way of working and transformation for the company. So that was kind of the main thing that we, and I think also the fact that it was scalable. The innovation was certainly around the scalability of it. The fact that I think, trained up, there were 16,000 employees globally, plus another 15 kind of contractors that we needed to make sure they knew what they were doing as well. Yeah, so the sheer size of it, there was a lot that went into that program, but it was really, really cool.
Wow, well done. Yes, I've heard of Credly. I think it's a smart move, especially I highly recommend. We use that here at Zeducation, the digital badges.
Awesome, yeah.
It's good for the employees because it helps them, it's evidence, it's incentive, and they can keep track of all the learning that they go through, right? This, learn that. And I can imagine what you mentioned earlier around the struggle before where they feel overwhelmed with so many trainings, but when you're able to track it and measure it, they're more motivated to do more and more and more. You don't have to force them.
Oh, absolutely.
Type of thing.
They want their badges. They do. And also if it's on LinkedIn, then it's external facing. So then you've got your badges that you can show off for future employment as well.
So well done. Okay, I can see that. And you mentioned job descriptions, right? And how you use that as an anchor to build roadmap or training programs for that particular role. They just come in the role, what's next? They come in, their role, they understand what the journey looks like into the future. Yeah. Which is great. And I understand, especially for recruitment and HR, they use job descriptions as their wish list when they're going out to hire people. This is the skills that we're looking for. So it sounds, I've never really heard it as much. So I thought that was quite clever and innovative in terms of taking the job. It just makes sense. It's not rocket science, but you rarely hear that. It's like we base it off the job description. Which is quite smart. So obviously there's a step before that, right? You need the job description to be able to help you with the training, the development and all that kind of thing, or know what to train them on. How do you craft the job descriptions? What's the before of that?
It's basically a combination of our human resources team. So that doesn't sit within the training team. We leverage them. We leverage the job descriptions blueprints, but we certainly don't build them. But they also partner with what we call communities, because it's something that we haven't spoken about yet. But at Cisco, our role communities are really important. So and we have a community leader assigned to every job, many job roles. So for example, again, a BDM community, we would have a BDM or business development manager role community leader, and they would drive engagement within that BDM population and help them to learn from each other and share best practices and promote engagement, basically. And so those community leaders also were a big part of building out these blueprints as well, because they're subject matter experts in the role.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it does make sense for them to consult the people who are at that level, who's got the experience, expertise, consult the skills the critical skills that lead to that. So it makes sense. That's very smart. So maybe tell us a little bit more in terms of, let's say you've got your training plan, it's all good to go, and it's time to roll it out. Tell us some of the, when it's time to roll it out, what are some of the challenges that you come across, and maybe some tips around managing that?
Okay, I think it kind of depends on who the audience is. It always depends on the audience. So if it's something that is for a specific job role, that's probably a little bit easier because we often use these community leaders and they're the face of the community and they also communicate to the community. So we would have them be our main kind of communicator actually for the training launch. And then they would be the ones to also, inspire those enrolled to actually complete the content and ask for feedback and things like that. But if it's something that's more broader facing, then there's quite a few approval chains that need to happen before anything could roll out. So at the moment, we're building a training. We're building these change management trainings, for example. And so those are going to be rolled out via our quarterly training requirements program, which we already have a vehicle for. But we do for these ones, because they're quite important topics, we want to make sure that the leadership team across the board has had their eyes on them. So, I guess it just depends on the training and the scale of it. But oftentimes we do need to make sure there's approvals from the right levels before we can hit people with messaging on certain topics.
Right. Yeah. So it's basically, the big thing is getting that buy-in, that support behind it as well to get the rollout. It's not just you guys, it's getting the leaders and supervisors and whoever's relevant in terms of the training or the people that will receive the training to be on board too. So tell us a little bit more about that in terms of, because I've worked with clients, especially with HR and L&D, who, they're ready to go. But sometimes who they report to, their senior, are not ready to go just quite yet. So we have to consider another important stakeholder when it comes to these kind of projects, right? Because we need their support. They're the ones with the money, the budget, and the authority to approve these things. So maybe give us some advice and tips around how do you help them, not just get their buy-in. I don't want to make it sound like we're trying to persuade them kind of thing or manipulate them, but how do we help them get involved, get their support, and make it happen?
It's a really hard one, actually, because it totally depends on the situation. Sometimes there's just they have their reasons because maybe there's something massive coming, and they know it doesn't make sense, but they can't tell us that information yet. So sometimes we actually just can't influence situations. It's kind of like that's just what it is. We just have to sit tight and hold, and that happens a lot. It happens a lot. There might be a restructure or something like that. So I think, but in terms of influencing leadership, I think they have to be armed with all the right information, and you have to do it in a way that is easy for them to just say yes. And so you need to position things maybe in quite a simplified manner where they can just kind of pick up the key concepts quickly because they're really busy and they've got a million things going on, and you want to make it easy for them to make a decision on your behalf, basically. So I think I'm learning, and all my team are learning, that we need to be as succinct with our messaging as possible. And I have an amazing manager at the moment who, even though I think I'm trying to be really good at simplifying messaging and asks, she comes in and will cull like 50% of what I've written because she's really good at it. And so I'm learning a lot from her, just being really clear on what you need from somebody.
Yeah, and I think that's a good one there. It sounded like, understand what they care about, making it clear in terms of, because L&D, your goals, your objectives, and your mission might be slightly different in terms of perspective, what they see, right? So it's important for us to be clear on, and it also helps, what is the business outcome or the ROI here in terms of the training? And then also, how are you going to achieve that? Or how's this training initiative going to achieve that? And that's speaking their language, and it makes it more easier for them. So what is that? What do you, and they're busy trying to connect the dots, and then they miss the point.
Yes.
So what you talked about there is when you're communicating the program or the vision of it, being very clear and understanding where they're coming from, what they care about, and connecting the dots. Because at the end of the day, there has to be ROI. It's a business.
Yes, absolutely.
It's a business.
Yeah, and I think sometimes you're not going to have FaceTime with them, so you need to pull everything together in a way that, in a manner, maybe it's just a Teams message, you know, and you're trying to get their approval of something, just really clear in terms of what you need from them and why is it important, and make it so it's a no-brainer for them. They're just like, of course, it makes sense.
Yeah. So cool. Thank you. Yeah, it's important. They've got their own metrics and you've got your own as well. So tell us a little bit more in terms of your metrics and how do you measure the impact and effectiveness of your training initiatives?
Yeah, we do have quite a few metrics, and being a big corporate, you know, that's really expected. So we kind of start down at the content specific level. So when we're building content, we always build in satisfaction surveys. So that's kind of a given. And we always track consumption. So we always know how many people have completed it. Right. What did they think of it? Would they recommend it to their colleagues? And did it help them do their job better, basically? And we gather all of that up and report up to leadership. And then we also we measure confidence levels. And so oftentimes we'll measure pre and post, and we'll self-assess our employees. So we'll say, how are you feeling in terms of your confidence before you take a course? And then you complete the content. You might have some experience exposure activities to do to practice. And then we say, how are you feeling now? Would you be able to do this by yourself? Would you need some help? Would you be able to coach others? And so that gives us quite a good idea of, you know, how they're feeling. And then there's things that are really specific to job roles. So each role has their own KPIs. And so we have teams that rally around that piece as well to say, okay, what are we trying to improve? What is the behavior we're trying to change? And can we see it increasing? Yeah. Can we see more sales or whatever it is, you know? And so those things are really critical, but they're very specific to the job role. And then we have measurements around community learning and the learning experience generally. So these are new metrics that we've just put in place. And so it's really cool because we're starting to see them go up. In the communities, we have a community leader and we have everybody that's in that job role. And we want to understand how they're progressing in their community, what the experience is like, is it helping them in their role? And then from a learning standpoint, what do they think about their learning experience, and would they recommend it to a colleague, basically? And so it's kind of like an NPS score. And so we're watching that number go up over time. And as we release new training, we would expect to see that number keeps moving up. Some job roles have less training, and so you're going to see a lower score, and then hopefully as they receive more and they're feeling more successful in their role or more invested in from a development training standpoint, that number will go up.
I like that. I believe in communities as well, especially if you want to sustain impact of the learning. Communities is a powerful way to do it. Can you tell us a little bit more how this communities is structured and how it works and how it, you know, is facilitated?
So in terms of structure, we have a community leader who is a subject matter expert in the particular job role. And there's somebody quite senior, and they'll pull together everybody. So for example, I'm part of the project program management community. There is a leader in place, and they hold a regular all hands meeting, could be every quarter, where they pull everybody together, and they might have some speakers that would come along and share some best practices for the community that would be relevant for that specific job role. They might have members of the community who are doing really great stuff that they want to kind of showcase. And so nobody in the community is reporting to that community leader, but the leader is bringing them all together so they can all learn from each other and also network. Networking is a really big part of it. But just that support model, you know, of having people that you can call on. So we're like team spaces where you can just fire a question through, and you're always going to have 6 responses. Everybody's really kind of keen to help their peers out. So it's that's really cool. And then we actually have a community platform, like an online platform where all of the conversations are tracked. We've got resource sections. We've got videos from our community leaders welcoming everybody to the community, and all the events that are happening within the community are showcased there. Yeah, so it's great. Wow, it's cool.
That is so cool. Well, it just goes to show that you guys are trying to foster some sort of learning culture as well, not just at a general level, but at a community level in terms of it could be project management, what you said, could be sales, could be marketing, depending on the type of business that you have as well. That is wonderful.
Yeah, it's really cool.
That is so cool. Can you give us from your experience, some advice around building a good learning culture within your business?
All right. So building a good learning culture, I think number one, you have to have your executive team that is bought into wanting to build a learning culture. So you have to have that executive buy-in from the top, and they have to really share with their employees the fact that they are committed to having a learning culture, and I guess that means that they provide time for their employees to learn. So they make sure that they're prioritizing it, and it's not just go out and learn, but it's here are some opportunities for you. So presenting opportunities to your employees around what they can do to build their skills. And it's easier said than done, because some companies, maybe smaller companies, it's going to be harder. But for smaller companies, there is lots of opportunity still. Even online today, there are so many great things on YouTube even that we pull into our learning pathways, and that's free, or TED Talks. We use TED Talks a lot often as well, especially for the soft skill piece. And then there's, for larger companies that have the money, obviously, then they need to be investing in their technology, making sure they've got great technology to roll things out to their employees. And that they're investing in their learning and development teams to make sure they've got the right skill sets to identify skills and build training that aligns to the business needs. And what else in terms of building a strategy? I think, making sure that employees have the time to learn as well is really important, as I said.
Yeah. It makes sense, especially at a global level, that technology that you leverage that to foster learning in your online communities that you talked about, using different videos, pulling that in. You kind of have to leverage technology. I believe it. Even if you're not a global business, even if you're just a New Zealand-based business, technology is a good tool to use.
Absolutely.
Can you maybe just 2 or 3 reasons why people should consider, or businesses should consider, using technology or thinking about embedding that as part of their learning and development?
Well, I think that scalability is something that's really important, especially for larger companies. So I think most companies probably do have some sort of an L&D platform. We use Degreed at Cisco, but there are many others. And we actually can create content ourselves internally. So probably anybody could be trained up as kind of like a train the trainer type thing, and create pathways within Degreed for whatever they need. So I think having that kind of easy tech platform is really important, because it's always on. Employees can access training whenever they want to, and I know a lot of my colleagues as well. We learn when we're not at work, so we learn from the gym or driving here, or cooking dinner even. I'll put on a LinkedIn learning training, for example. And so I think giving people the possibilities to fit learning into their life rather than just into their work day is really important if you can. And then just making sure it's a real focus. So another thing we do at Cisco, I might be getting a bit off track here, but another thing we do is have learning days or half days of learning. So we stop for everybody that can stop, that's not in a critical customer-facing role. Stop and learn. And here are some examples of what you could do, but you don't have to. You can do whatever you want, but use the time to work on your CV or update your LinkedIn profile, or learn about change management or strategy or whatever it is you want to do, but take the time. And then another thing we also do is, and this is the HR team that drives this, but once a quarter we have between 1 and 3 days of learning for the whole entire company. And we'll have amazing speakers that come in, because Cisco is a big company. We can afford amazing speakers, like the likes of Michelle Obama came recently to talk to us. It was amazing. But it doesn't have to be somebody like that. It could just be somebody from your business that people look up to that has something worthwhile to share around learning, or how they've strategies in terms of how they've built their career, or how they network, or whatever it may be. Yeah, so just finding opportunities for your employees to keep continually learning, because at the end of the day, it's going to impact your business.
100%. Wow. I love that. So Cisco invests in their staff to spend some time on personal development or things to improve CV, LinkedIn profile, and you've got things learning on the go.
Yes.
And the stop and learn as well, and the big events where everyone comes together and learn and listen to people like Michelle Obama. Oh my goodness.
It was nuts. She was amazing. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
You've been in this industry for years, right? So especially, I assume you're well experienced. You've been exposed to a lot of things. You see a lot of things, and I'm sure you keep your finger on the pulse in terms of trends and staying ahead of the game. You have to, especially at a global level, right? Things are always changing. It might be not changing here in New Zealand, but changing in America, changing here and there. Mm-hmm. So you got to keep your finger on the pulse and keep things relevant.
Yeah.
And what works here in New Zealand might not necessarily work in another country, to take into consideration. I guess looking to the future, what are some of the trends that you're seeing that will shape the future of L&D and training your people?
The big one that, I imagine AI is going to have a massive impact. There are people across Cisco looking into it right now. I'm not one of them, but I'm interested to see what comes of it all. So I think that that's definitely going to be something that impacts us. I think agility and remaining agile. Actually, it's something that I'm wanting to learn more about. I've booked in a certification around agile and leading learning and development programs in an agile way. So I'm looking forward to that because I think it's going to be really important. We need to make sure that we are agile and speedy as well with whatever we're doing, because with the pace of change we need to keep up, and we need to make sure that the right content, whether it's a new portfolio release or it's a new strategy or a new way of working or a new tool or whatever it is, everything's changing all the time. So how can we move as fast as the business needs us to get content out to our employees at the right time but not overwhelm them, so there's all of those types of things to think about. I think the digital first aspect is really important. So if companies can do that as much as they can, that is great, because it means learning is always on. People don't have to wait to sign up for a training course in 2 months' time, and they can access it straight away. What else is there? And then I think just everything around simplicity of messaging and storytelling is really important too. So making sure that, because there's so much coming at everybody, how can you help them remember stuff? And so with storytelling, if you can kind of reach people's emotions and, that expression, people don't remember what you do. They remember how you make the that one.
Yeah, what you say on, so not what you did, but how you made them feel.
Exactly.
Along those lines.
That one. But it's really true, right? And so it's kind of like, what emotion can you evoke to make sure that they remember what you're trying to tell them? So simplicity in messaging, again as well. Yeah.
I love that, and I think that's a key ingredient for making it sticky.
Yes.
It's definitely storytelling, because that's how our ancestors have done it. They pass information on. It's easier to remember in the form of stories.
Absolutely.
Especially if there's an emotion tied to it, and it hasn't changed for years. We're still the same. No matter how much technology changes, us human beings, we love stories. It's easy to visualize as well in your mind. Yeah, I love it. Well, hey, thank you so much. Thank you, Sarah, for your time. You've given us so much wisdom and knowledge and insights in terms of how to build a good learning culture, especially with Cisco, what you're doing there and leading the way. It's been fantastic having you here on our episode today. I just want to thank you for your time. And before we wrap this podcast up, is there any final tip that you would give to our L&D and HR professionals out there?
I just think learning is just so important today. Everybody has to keep staying relevant. So as much as you can do to make it a priority in your business, and make sure your leadership is prioritizing it, the better. And then even just for the learners themselves, like, keep learning. Even if your leadership is maybe not prioritizing it, make sure that you do.
Love it. Some great final advice. So thank you, Sarah Mouscardes, Senior Global Programs Leader at Cisco. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.